Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I am H.A. Conrad, here with the intrepid Stuart Tiffin. Hey, Stuart.
YOLO.
We are on episode 138, and we are doing our deep dive into season 6 of The Walking Dead. This week we are talking about episodes 7 and 8. Lots of stuff going on there. And prior to that, we have a couple of news items, a little sparse this week, and mainly this is in the entertainment section of our zombie genre. Do you want to kick it off to talk about if it stains the sands red?
It does stain the sand red. I would just like to comment, though, my zombie news feed has been taken over by people co-opting the term zombie for things other than zombie. They're like,
it's a lot
loans,
of it's a lot
banks.
of zombie real estate, zombie
zombie
whatever.
policy. So this is I blame society.
Agreed.
Right. But moving on to more uplifting topics, it stains the sand red. There's a trailer out for this film. It's indie. It is winning awards at festivals. It looks pretty. The trailer makes it look like it was small cast, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's also some big shots of like Las Vegas, but it looks like a pretty harrowing tale of a hooker and a zombie. I don't know. Maybe that's
the hooker and the zombie. That heartwarming tale that we all know so well. It does look terrifying if you imagine being, sort of stranded in a desert, which is terrifying enough.
Just imagine driving through Nevada. That's terrifying enough right there.
Right. And then having some kind of undead thing following you in the heat with no water, and you're wearing like this weird little fake fur coat and no sunscreen. Like that's just horrific.
And leopard stretch pants.
Yep. But it's the no sunscreen part that I find the most horrifying personally.
Yeah.
Being a very pale person. I think we should check it out and maybe review it.
Oh, for sure. When it becomes available, we should jump on it like...
White on rice?
Gosh, what's a good simile for that? What do you jump on? A bandwagon? A
train to Busan?
A pie train? A train with pies? Any kind of train that you want to get on.
Yes. That pie train makes me very hungry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to trigger your hunger. So other than It Stains the Sand Red, what else has been going on for you?
Well, the long-awaited debut of American Gods, so a couple episodes are out.
Let's preface this. I think we might have spoken a little bit about it on the podcast, but are you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a Neil Gaiman fan are you?
I'm a pretty big Neil Gaiman fan. I mean, I'm definitely a Sandman fan. I really loved this book because it reads a lot like, to me, it reads like a fiction version of comic books, and I think that was perhaps the intent. I do think that he does such a fantastic job at character building, and in the vein, I feel like it's world building in a certain sense, but definitely tying in mythology and lots of cool, like, weird stuff that I personally enjoy. He's got definitely a little bit of a twist to a lot of the stories. Like, there's a dark side to the stories that he tells, and I don't know if you ever read Coraline, but even though that's a children's book, it is probably one of the most terrifying things I think I've read. So, yeah, I'd say I'm a pretty big fan. I do think that as you read his work, there's definitely themes that are repeated and sometimes repeated a little too much. And there has been some criticism of American Gods basically saying it's basically retreading Sandman, but I almost feel like that's the intention. So, did you ever read that series or?
So I've read American Gods. I mean, this is all like 10 years ago now, I feel like, but I read American Gods, and then I read Anansi Boys, and then I think I read one of his other books about like Underworld or something.
Oh, Neverwhere. Yep.
Neverwhere, yeah.
Which is actually kind of an unusual book, only because he did a screenplay for this TV movie or miniseries, or I guess it was a series in the UK, and then decided to write the book afterwards, which is kind of a funny way to go about it, but that's how it worked out.
Yeah. I definitely enjoyed hanging out in this world from American Gods. So Nancy Boyce was also a good book. I don't know why I don't seek out more of his books for some reason.
There are little collections of his short stories, and some of them are super dark. And the reason why Coraline plays into some of those ideas, like it is supposed to be, I suspect, a grim fairy tale, to some extent, where things aren't what they seem, and there's just really terrifying themes, and the kids kind of left to deal with things, and they're horrible things to be dealing with, and trying to figure things out. He also wrote a book called The Ocean at the End of the Lane and Stardust. Stardust is much more of I call it like a fairy tale.
That's the Robert De Niro movie.
Yeah, but the book is very different from the film, and that is a very good example of why I had some trepidation about American Gods being made into a television series, was because I was uncertain how it would play on the screen. Most of the things that he has done, his storytelling to me has not translated as well into filmmaking and television, and I'll include Neverwhere in that, given the fact that it was made at a certain time and with I suspect, a fairly modest budget. I think maybe that held them back a little bit, but I really was, and also this was in production for so long, and there was a lot of back and forth, and it was on and it was off. I don't think it was originally with Starz. It was with, I want to say, HBO initially had been talking about making this, and then it got switched, and that worried me a little bit. So, but your first thoughts on these couple of episodes?
Like I said, it's been a long time since I read the book, but super enjoyable, super gory. Mm-hmm. I'm watching the first episode, the pilot, and my wife comes into the room, and there's just these gouts. It's the beginning of the first episode, like the prologue scene, or whatever. Yeah, and there's these gouts of blood going across the screen, and she's like, "How is it that you find the most disturbing things on television to watch?" It's like you have a gift.
I feel like your wife and my husband really would just be happier if they got to hang out and watch their own television, because my husband tried to watch this with me, and at the end of it said, "Yeah, you're on your own with this one."
Well, it depends. How into like really depressing Turkish immigration stories is Bill? Would he be down with that?
No, he's definitely more of a rom-com kind of a guy. So that's Holly's jag.
It's her. Well, I mean, no, she loves herself some Jennifer Aniston, so it would all work out.
Yeah. But yeah, he pretty much said the same thing. What his comment is, what usually when he walks in on me watching something like that, is that he finds it disturbing that I just kind of am not really bothered by it, and that includes The Walking Dead. So, hey, I don't know why. I feel like I'm a little desensitized to it. And I do look at it, whenever something like that is happening, I'm always thinking about how they're doing the effect, and imagining the choreography of that beach scene, which is, I think, the scene you're talking about with the Vikings. Just imagining the dudes all on that beach battling that out, and how kind of weird that must have been. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective, I suppose.
I feel like I'm just a sociopath, so that's where it all bounces
well, okay, maybe I am too.
Either way, I'm really enjoying this show. I love the cast. The like every time a new character is introduced and I'm recognizing them, I'm like, oh my god, this is my favorite guy from The 100. Oh, this is my favorite guy from Deadwood. Oh, this is my favorite guy from The Wire. Mad Sweeney being played by, I don't know the dude's name, but he was on The Wire and he was awesome.
Yeah, he was.
So really enjoying it. The story is, obviously there's a lot going on and we're kind of out in the dark. We don't really know what's happening. I've read the book, but I don't really remember much of it. So it's just like a fun ride. I'm totally digging it.
They've shifted a couple of things, but nothing that's they've kept pretty close to it. And I do know that that Neil Gaiman was very involved in certain parts of this. I know that there was a lot of discussion about a specific scene in the first episode where he put his foot down, and I'm glad he did, because it just would not have been in line with the character of Shadow at all. So there was a specific sexual act that, the Mourning Widow was going to perform on him, and Neil Gaiman's like, he would never have accepted that because he was, so upset that his wife died. So anyway, I'm.
You're saying the producers wanted that to go through?
Yeah, they were like, oh, but he just got out of prison and whatever, and I guess Neil Gaiman was like, yeah, you guys need to read the book again, because that's just something that would not work out.
I thought that scene worked really well with it not happening. Yeah.
Exactly. I love Ian McShane as Odin, or as Wednesday, I guess we shall call him. I think that the casting overall was spot on. There's nobody in there that I am really unhappy with yet. Although I will say that the person that's playing Loki Lysmith he's not quite there, but I haven't seen enough of him, so perhaps that will change. And then the person, Ricky Whittle, who plays Shadow, looks awesome. Like he's perfect.
He's from the 100. Show that I always told you about that you probably never got around to seeing.
I watched the first 2 episodes. It's still there, and I'll still watch it. But he is really, really good. So I'm excited about this. I'll continue to watch. But so far, no undead action yet.
No, so. Although we did get a glimpse of Gillian Anderson also in this show, and
yes,
we've seen the bride come back, but only in dreams, it seems like, so far.
Yeah, so not yet what happens in the book. So we'll look forward to this, and maybe we'll review some of those aspects later on, depending on how it unfolds. Are you ready for the Walking Dead review?
Let's do it.
All right. So we've got episode 7 of season 6 of The Walking Dead, called Heads Up. Directed by David Boyd, written by Channing Powell. So a lot of mayhem here in Alexandria. As we left our feisty team, the whole tower had fallen down and everything was mayhem. I'm
what?
not...
No. Back it up. Heads Up.
Oh, sorry. Start to finish. Different one.
Yeah. Heads Up is the Glenn survival mystery.
Sorry. The Glenn, where we find out that Glenn survives and his whole journey. And yeah. Sorry.
After all my bitching and moaning that we didn't find out what happened to Glenn because of the Morgan story and the 2 subsequent episodes, this is, some kind of closure.
Well, it's closure. It's also a little bit of Enid closure. Yeah, I know. And yeah, so we got that going on.
So how did you? Can you cast yourself back to the first time you saw this and it opened up with Glenn? I'm sure you, as the cynic that you are, were like, of course Glenn was always alive, and of course this is how I expected it to go. How did you think he was really going to survive this scene?
I assumed it was exactly what they did with him, and which is why they weren't showing lower down in his body. Typically, this is the thing with The Walking Dead and why this was so stupid and why they were so, ridiculous in how they staged this bullshit, was that when you take out a major character, they make it as gory as possible, or as graphic as possible. You see it. And they didn't do that here. And I really, unless it's Fear the Walking Dead and then they kill a majorly annoying character off camera. But, usually in The Walking Dead, this is, you're seeing everything and it's not done in this manner. So, yeah. I still think it's bullshit how he survived because I still don't think he would have. Every
Even
time
when
we've
he's
seen...
when he's dragging himself out from underneath Nicholas's body, it's wait, they're not going to notice him?
Right, and he's moving, and they just kind of pounce. They're not, they're mindless. They just go for motion and sound, and you're moving. So that was kind of silly, and so weak, so weak. And then they tease that for so long, and then this is what they do. Come on. Not that I was happy to see Glenn alive. I was, but this was just kind of silly.
He gets up after being under the dumpster for we don't really know how long. There's like a montage of zombies walking away from the dumpster to show us that they eventually lose interest. He looks for water. He can't find. He's like, "Oh, I'm so thirsty." And then Enid throws down a bottle of water from the nearby roof because she just happens to be there. Improbable like follow up Glenn's improbable survival with Enid's even less probable being nearby.
Right.
So she throws down a bottle. She's like, "Heads up!" Throws a bottle. It breaks. She gets mad at Glenn for it breaking. This just begins a cycle, a series, let's say, of Enid saying and doing things that are really annoying for the next 2 episodes for me.
Yeah, but she's always kind of done that, so I was not surprised by this.
It was fine when she was just a moody, surly, silent person who didn't have screen time. I was fine with that.
Who just held hands with Carl.
Yeah. But now they want her to be a character, and I'm like, do I have to deal with her? That's kind of all I feel about it. And Glenn and they have this really loud conversation. They're like throwing stuff. They're yelling at each other. And I'm like, wasn't there a zombie horde? I mean, maybe more time has gone by. This is the thing. I never know exactly how much time there's. Maybe it's been hours since a zombie even set foot in this town now. But they're like yelling at each other. It's frustrating.
Well, it's also weird that he's so adamant that she come back with him. Like, he didn't even really know her very well. And why does he...
This is Glenn.
I guess, but why does he even care? She's just annoying. And he's also learned that you leave some idiots behind.
Well, he didn't leave... This is the thing. Well, who's he... Oh, Nicholas. He hasn't learned his lesson. Because, he'll save Tara. He'll save Nicholas until Nicholas tries to get him killed. Inadvertently, because he's that incompetent. So he'll... I mean, he does kind of give up on her because she runs away. Yeah. And even that scene bothered me. She's just like sprinting down an alley, not looking where she's going.
Right.
Yoy.
And then we've also, speaking of characters that just seem to not learn their lessons, we've got Morgan with our wolf friend.
Yeah. Trying to recruit the doctor. There's also a scene...
Okay.
Right after the credits, there's a scene with Rick in front of out in the open in Alexandria, and over his shoulder you see the church tower. Yep. And so my thought was, you show a church tower,
you're gonna make it fall.
In the first act, that church tower is gonna fall down by Act 3. So that was way to go, television.
The church tower piece, it was pretty clear what they were going to do because we never really see it before then.
So it kind of goes back. There's a short scene. Yeah, there's a couple little scenes in Alexandria. Then we go back to Glenn, and he finds Mr. Betsy, and he's turning because, as we mentioned earlier, Michonne, Heath, and Scott didn't have the decency to put him out of his misery while he was getting eaten alive.
Yeah.
So Glenn
does it and finds the note, which
and it's finding the note and finding Mr. Betsy that prompts him to not just go straight home and go back and find Enid, which is why, for some unknown reason, it's not explained other than the fact that he finds his like Dear Betsy letter, and that's enough to make him be like, no, I have to save every single person. So then he turns around and goes back.
Yeah, I was hoping it would just make him go and get, his lady, but all right, Maggie, you'll have to wait.
Yeah,
that's what I thought they were showing. That's why it was a kind of a confusing decision. So, back at the ranch, we've got some other very poor decisions going on. Namely, there's the whole Ron handgun thing.
Yep, show Ron how to shoot a gun. And on their way to gun practice, why is Rick tearing down Gabriel's prayer circle notices?
Because he's angry and crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows. Even Carl's like, Dad, that's kind of dickish.
Yeah, he's like, dude. And I guess like the exchanges between Ron and Carl, to me, are like, I guess I feel like Carl wouldn't think that it was a good idea to give Ron a handgun either. But he never says anything.
Have they? They haven't been enemies yet, though, have they?
Not enemies, but I mean, I think Carl saw the evil looks coming off of Ron, and I don't know. There's enough weirdness there with him, and Rick has to have seen it, and Carl has to have seen it enough to not even necessarily animosity towards Carl, but just the fact that he's a little crazy pants. So
Yeah. I mean, I think Carl is aware that there's going to be bad blood there because they basically talk about it in the next episode.
yep,
But yeah, it's weird. Carl also does not give. He's not good at like just shutting up. Like if he thinks that there's
no,
bad blood, why does he think that he's going to be able to give advice to Ron and that's going to go over well?
I know, and I actually feel kind of bad for Carl, the character of Carl, and whoever's writing for him because it's all just nonsense. It's weird, like nonsensical advice. You know what I mean?
I
Like
think
he
it's
kind
good
of,
advice. It's good. It's like you're gonna be scared. Like he's trying to just, I don't know, talk sense to Ron, but they're both teenagers.
they still did give a nice little shooting lesson, so that's fine, I guess. But I don't know. In general, like the denizens of Alexandria, I am a little skeptical, just because they have all been in the dark. So I just think that I know that they need to learn how to fight back. I just think that there is maybe a way to present this to them where you're kind of putting some safeties in place because I just don't know. They all seem like they're about to wig out at any second, I
They
guess.
all just seem like, yeah, like puddles of
Yeah.
piss. Rick has his come to Jesus with Morgan. And it turns out that Carol and Michonne are there too. At first, you don't see either of them, and then suddenly it's like, oh, everybody's here. This is a intervention, because it turns out that everybody blames Morgan for, and it's probably for good reason, for letting like 6 of the wolves go at the end of the wolf fight, who
Right.
then basically tried to kill Rick, and Rick kills 6 people by himself because
Right.
that's what he does. But they managed to kill the RV
Yep.
and essentially landed them all in hot water because if he'd had the RV, he could have led them away.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Morgan's counter argument is flawed, I think. His counter argument is, well, if you had killed me in Kings County when I was trying to kill you, then I couldn't have interceded on the behalf of Aaron and Daryl at the wolf trap, and they would have died, and then the wolves never would have found Alexandria.
Right.
But the wolves found Alexandria, I think, because of Aaron's backpack,
Right. So that wasn't. That
which they
doesn't
would have
make.
had either way.
Right.
So, I mean, he's trying to make an argument about like, cause and effect and karma, I guess. You know, it's just that I think in that case, the audience isn't necessarily going to be like, yeah, Morgan, you're a good guy for letting everybody live because only good things happen. And so it's hard to see eye to eye with his philosophy in this scene.
There's a lot of philosophies in this particular episode that I can't necessarily get behind.
Mm-hmm.
Including Glenn's never-ending weird attempt to convert Enid back into an Alexandrian.
There's like 5 scenes of him like trying to convince her that
Yeah.
she should give a shit about people. It's
And
just really.
and to me, this was such an odd way to reintroduce him back in, like, because look, you got a lot of goodwill there. People are going to be happy to see him alive, but they want to see him reunited. They don't, or they want to see him, I don't know, like doing something as opposed to like trying to deal with a moody teenager the whole way. And
That's actually a very good point.
like, so this was such an odd decision to me. Even while I was watching this, I was like, really? This is what you guys did? Like, this, you had this time, and this is like your big, your big reveal that he's alive, and you have him like playing guidance counselor. And yes, I understand that this is part of what Glenn's character is. He has become a little bit of the Dale / Herschel, or that's sort of what they're trying to do with him. But I still think they didn't need 5 interactions between him and Enid. And she's like, she pulls a gun on him and does all sorts of crazy things where any normal person who wants to get back to his pregnant wife would say, hey, maybe this isn't worth it. But no. Sorry, rant over.
No, I totally agree with your rant. We've also got Rosita is doing like a training session on how to use a machete.
Yeah.
And then when Eugene can't hack it, she gives him a pep talk.
Yeah.
And her pep talk, basically based on the faces that the Alexandrians are making, and based on my own reaction, is like, you're terrible at pep talks.
Yeah, she's not good at pep talks at all.
I mean, she's saying things that make sense. It's just, and this is kind of a problem that I have with Rosita's character. I don't know if it's the actor's name is Christian something. I forget her last name. She, she doesn't come across very sympathetic most of the time.
Mm-mm.
She comes across really angry a lot of the time, and maybe that's exactly the way it's written, and that's how we're supposed to see it. But I'm like, damn, dude, this is it's a drag. Like you've got to
Yeah.
have more than one mode, you know?
Well, and that's the thing is that they don't really do too much with her character. Like she's like that's kind of it. It's just one switch, and you don't really. I don't feel like you truly get to see any layers there for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's just continuing along too. This
Right.
is seasons later. She's still just pissed off all the time.
Yeah.
At least in the first season when she was introduced, which would be season 5, I think, she was more of a cartoon character with her ridiculous pigtails and short shorts. But she at least had like a sexual relationship with Abraham that showed at least one other layer other than anger.
Right.
And I think she like laughed during sex. Like, okay, good, you can laugh. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Rosita is a character that needs work for sure.
Yep. Let's see what else is going on. The other weird stuff is that in this episode is that there's a lot of this attempt to, you have Rick teaching Ron how to shoot. You have him trying to reinforce the wall, and like Tobin randomly comes over and is like, "Hey, we hated you before, but now we love you because you're gonna help us survive." And it's sort of this. I feel a little bit of a lot of a heavy-handed attempt to show how far the Alexandrians have shifted in their thinking about Rick, and he's tearing down prayer circle signs. he's honestly, he's led this herd of walkers right into them. And I know that there were definitely circumstances beyond his control, but I just feel like the Alexandrians in general are cowards by nature. They've been living these very sheltered lives, so I feel like this is kind of a weird thing to throw in there because I just don't think that that's how they would actually act. I do think that they would blame him for the danger that they are in.
It does seem to be like, yeah, that seems more likely. But what the show wants us to think, and it's all kind of balanced off of Spencer's little break for freedom, is that he clearly thinks that they aren't worth a damn. And what the show wants us, like whoever wrote this episode, which actually we know who that is. What's that person's name? David Boyd?
Mm-hmm.
What they want us to think is that the balance of power, like that Rick has all the leverage because he's popular by some unknown reason, like you're saying. He's essentially failed in his mission to divert the horde, and in doing so has led thousands of zombies back to Alexandria. But they are still trying to win him over in some kind of weird popularity contest. Because when he's talking to Michonne about like getting outside the wall to lure zombies away, and she's like, well, why don't we bring some Alexandrians? He's like, nah,
Yeah.
they're not worth it, let's not do it. And Michonne is having this whole thing about like, no, this is our community, we are them, they are us. Tara also has this reaction, especially when Spencer goes over the wall and Rick yells this horribly insulting thing when Tobin was also right there helping him. It's kind of a weird thing where, yeah, you and I kind of agree that people should not think Rick's the be all and end all because he's kind of screwed up and a lot of their predicament is his fault. However, when Spencer makes a break for it and tries to get over the wall and Tara risks her life, kind of in quotes, I'm putting air quotes up, by leaning over the wall to shoot zombies in a weird position and at such a distance that the amount of headshots she gets is extremely improbable. Yeah. And then he yells at her like, hey, don't you dare risk your life for these people or for them or you know, and she just gives him the finger, and I love that. That
Yeah,
to
that
me
was
is
pretty awesome.
perfect. That's some class A Tara right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Uh, because
Um,
Tobin's right there, and Tobin was helping him, and Tobin was the one who was just talking to him about like saying, "Hey,
hey,
don't give
don't.
up on
Yeah.
us."
Well, and then I will, like, to Rick's credit, the Spencer thing was ridiculously stupid,
Yeah,
and
Spencer is another throwaway, worthless person.
right. So I understand why he was so worked up, but agreed, he shouldn't have been yelling his angry Rick voice, throwing that around, for for kicks, and certainly not yelling at Tara because she was trying to help.
And she
Um,
was making like Olympic gold medal shots.
I
So
know. But yeah, and then there's also, again, like, scooting back to Morgan with his horrible decision with the wolf. I think what we're seeing with, like, Rick's decision making and Morgan's decision making, and it doesn't seem like they're telling a very cohesive story about why these characters are actually doing what they're doing. So yeah, I understand a little bit about why Rick's so anti-Alexandrian, but it still doesn't make sense. His reactions are over the top. And then with Morgan, with the wolf, like, I know that they showed us the whole Morgan sort of soul searching thing, but I also know that doctor knew that, like, I guess maybe the lesson is that he starved that serial killer to death in the cage, and maybe Morgan felt like he learned something from that. I don't know, but I feel like there's got to be some point where you think that the wolf is going to kill you. I don't know that you would be. Do you think Morgan would actually have done this? It feels very forced to me.
do you just mean like continuing to keep him there?
Continuing to keep him there, the man, like, he was bitten, so
No,
he's
he
going to
was
turn.
no, the wolf wasn't bitten.
The wolf
It's a
wasn't.
cut. He has
Are
a
you
cut on
sure?
his. He has a infected cut. Is all.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was a bite, but maybe I'm
This
wrong.
show doesn't let you wonder if something's a bite or not, because like we see in the next episode, you have a perfect imprint of teeth
Of
when you
teeth.
get bitten.
Okay, okay. Maybe I misinterpreted that. But even so, he is still saying evil crap to Morgan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think, like, this doesn't make sense to me, and they draw this out for so long, and then they draw it longer into the next episode where we
Oh
see
God.
everything that happens. And seriously, that episode, I mean, I just, so many people, like, I don't know. There's so many things, Stuart. But
Yeah. By the end of this episode, the thing I was thinking was like Rick and Tobin are the only two people actually working on keeping the damn wall from falling down.
right.
Like they're the only two people who seem to be concerned about the zombies outside the wall in a way. You've got Gabriel and his group doing prayer circle, which is probably the second most helpful thing, I think, honestly. Jesse's babysitting Judith, but before she was doing that, she was working on her rooster sculpture on her porch.
Yep.
You got Olivia's just like reading a book. Um, it's it's insane the amount of not helping that people are doing inside Alexandria when we know that there's what 40 people, 30 something in
Mm-hmm.
there, and only Rick and Tobin are the only people working on shoring up the wall.
Right. And then nobody's noticed that any of this stuff is connected and might not be structurally sound. Come on.
Well, we keep, as an audience, we keep getting to see the scenes of the church groaning and planks falling down. But yeah, perhaps that's just for us. That's our little secret,
I
with
don't
the TV show.
I don't think so. I just think they're being unobservant. But I also, like, in terms of, like, that's annoying enough, but I would like to talk about Glenn's signaling method to let Maggie know he's alive.
Well, what else was he supposed to do? His flare gun was very clearly broken at the beginning of the episode.
I understand that, but do you think people are actually going to notice a little gaggle of balloons?
Well,
Like,
everybody in
come
Alexandria,
on!
they're like, wait, no way. No
No
way are there six
way.
balloons.
Glenn's alive! Green balloons!
Well, yeah, also I'd like to mention that Rick doesn't actually say, "Oh yes, that's definitely Glenn and he's definitely alive." He just kind of nods at Maggie, kind of like, uh-huh.
Believe what you gotta believe,
I'm
kid.
not gonna
Yeah.
disagree with you, but I'm not saying it out loud. Yes, definitely Glenn's alive. I'm like, I think Rick's probably fairly
A little more
skeptical about that.
skeptical. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Fair. Fair. Um, and then we get to where I tried to jump to you from the very beginning. Maybe because I found this particular episode to be so damn tedious.
Well, the church does fall down at the end, of the very end of this episode.
Yes.
Falls
Yes.
right down.
Yes, it does. Oh, and also we should probably mention that Morgan does try to enlist Denise into
Yeah,
helping him,
yeah.
and tries to.
And they go down to the basement
Yep.
together. But as the church is falling down at the end of this heads up episode, everybody starts to run. They like all have the red instinct is run away. So they're all running away. But then at the beginning of this episode, we watch the church tower fall down, and then within 5-10 seconds, zombies start coming through the breach. And Rick is somehow like right next to the. Well, I guess he was working on the wall, so he's like 30 feet away from that, and he's in the solar panel area, but he's very close to the zombies by the time he gets up. The zombies are moving fast. It's kind of weird. Like multiple characters are within like melee range of zombies, although they are way faster. And I feel like we just did a whole episode about how much faster people are than zombies when the herd starts to move,
Yep.
So I'm not totally sure why Maggie gets caught out in the open, why Deanna and Rick have their issue, except for they're kind of like running into them instead of away from them. Carl and Ron kind of get mixed up. It's very strange. Like, wait, why is there this protracted scene of people fighting zombies because the wall just fell down when you could just run away from them? There's no way they could catch you.
And that felt a little bit forced too. Just like, oh wait, slow down, gotta let them catch you. I don't know. It just felt kind of, either they needed more walkers to make it more overwhelming, or they needed to figure out the spacing issues here. But it did seem like the best option would have been to run away and hide and get to a spot where they could hopefully ignore you or just walk through. But that's not what happens. There's just a lot of sort of weird forced choreography going on here to show how desperate the situation is.
Yeah. This is also an episode where we see a lot of Sam. He's listening to like weird 1930s music on a record in his bedroom, playing with toys and drawing pictures of himself being tied to a tree and chased by zombies, which is great. The poor kid, you really feel for the kid, the makeup, the haircut, everything. Nothing's going his way. And he has ants.
Yeah, he's got ants, and his mom just keeps telling him, pretend you're brave, pretend this isn't happening. That's not necessarily going to help this kid.
You know what would have helped this kid? You know what really would have helped this kid? Morgan. Like, give this kid to Morgan. As soon as Morgan gets into the colony, teach him stick skills. Instead of Morgan, like, adopting a wolf, he should have adopted Sam.
Exactly. And that way he could have converted somebody that might have actually been useful at some point and isn't a crazy, creepy, weird-teethed character.
And shave his head, for pity's sake.
That poor bowl cut. And, gotta say, his mom has a lot of explaining to do. Because she's always like cutting his hair and stuff. It's like, that's what you did to the kid? Come on.
Yeah. Professional hair cutter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't have a lot of notes for this episode because I think it's a lot of like, oh, we're trapped in a room with zombies.
Well, there's a lot of that. There again, the things that we saw in the beginning of this episode kind of continue. They do continue. There's a lot of weirdness with Deanna because Deanna's been wounded, and is displaying those teeth marks that are so prominent, and so we know she's been bitten. And then she's doing weird stuff like dragging herself into the baby's room.
Well,
which I
the baby was
strange,
crying, so
but
she was
still.
But yeah, it was pretty funny. She almost gets axed in the head. It's nice to see Rick brandishing his hand axe, which is a big thing that he has in the books or during this period of the books. But I was just happy to see him using his hand axe a bunch. So we were also not only stuck inside Alexandria with all the zombies and the problems that they have there, but we were going back outside where Glenn is still trying to convince Enid that she should give a shit about people.
Yeah. For the umpteenth time,
Wow.
and they go through yet another back and forth and back and forth, and it's ridiculous. And even the arguments and the weird things that he says to her, I still don't think are necessarily convincing.
Well,
So
it's
I
when he
don't.
says that Maggie's pregnant is when does like a double take,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, that's the thing. That's wait, if you give so
like
few shits about people, why do you even care that there's a pregnant person inside?
right. And her as like a character, I don't think she would care at all about that. But okay.
But that's
Um,
what does it. That's
yeah.
what turns her around. But then they have to refight this battle again later once they see that things are as bad as they are. Um, so Denise has been stuck in the basement with the wolf
Mm-hmm.
because Morgan and Carol were outside when the church tower fell down. This Morgan and Carol thing,
So
one of
annoying.
my top 10 most frustrating moments in The
Yeah.
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Carol, so okay, Morgan is being kind of dumb by wanting to keep the wolf alive, and he's consistent through this episode. He still wants to keep the wolf alive. The wolf is basically not a threat, in air quotes. But
Mm.
Carol's decision-making process in this episode to like, yeah, start a fight in the middle of a terrible calamitous experience.
Right.
I cannot excuse this. To me,
And I
this is
don't,
like
and again, I don't think she would do it. I don't think she would do it because Carol does know when to pick a fight and when not to. And this just seemed insane to me. And plus, you got Denise down there. Um, and, it just seems like I don't think Carol would have done this in the middle of what was going on. Because her number one directive, like what she kind of goes by, is survival. And she's not going to deal with this situation in the way that she did. Um, at least that is my opinion.
yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not how they wrote it. And instead, of course, what happens is that both Carol and Morgan get incapacitated by the wolf, and now he's with Denise, and Denise tries to begin this conversion. There's just a lot of unsuccessful conversions here. Um,
uh, the "you are so full of shit" was a fun little
yeah,
statement from her towards
yeah,
the end of that. But yeah, it's really annoying. Like Morgan is the one who knocks out Carol. He does win the fight, although it's not as easy as it should be. He's a melee specialist,
I know,
and
I know.
Carol's just like I don't know what she is, a deceit specialist. She's good
Yeah,
and she's a marksman. We know that from the Terminus episode. She's not necessarily a hand-to-hand fighter.
no, she is
That's what
not.
more. So it's weird that she has as much of a run in that fight as they give her.
Right.
But yeah, it ends badly for everybody. And then I don't know. Yeah, Ron and Carl have this big fight in the garage.
Again, a lot of ill-timed fights going on
I
with
know.
everybody. And
Oh.
the Ron and Carl thing is like there's this really, I don't want to call it a funny scene, but it is like really kind of when everything goes wrong and the walkers start like coming in through the window. There's like this rack of shoes, and Carl like pushes the rack onto the walkers, and it's like
Everybody knows that walkers can't cross shoes.
they cannot cross shoes, and there's like 5 pairs of shoes up there.
So no
Um,
chance.
Yeah, so that was kind of lame. And then you've also got um, the Eugene, Rosita, and Tara contingent,
That's pretty boring though.
which is boring, other than him picking a lock and his weird Eugenisms.
Also, if you hold up a Zippo in Act 2
Ugh.
of this this is also, by the way, the half season finale. If you
Right.
hold up a Zippo in Act 2 of the half season finale, the Zippo will come into play in some way
Yes,
in
it will.
Act 3 of the next episode, which is coming in February, like 3 months later. Just wanted to
Right.
throw, because there's a lot of this foreshadowing going on between church towers and Zippos.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't even remember if a Zippo actually does come into play in the next episode, but I have a feeling it does somehow. But yeah, I wasn't that into this scene. Like, they're just in this garage. Rosita's being morose. Tara's being like somehow chipper, and Eugene's reading a book.
Yeah, it's just stupid. Um, and then we've got the return of the gut camouflage, happens.
Oh yeah, Fear the Walking Dead's favorite thing that we've only seen used twice
Yes,
in
yes.
in the Walking Dead Prime.
And you know it's really a good idea. A really good idea is to cover a mentally disturbed, shell-shocked kid with guts and think that he's gonna behave like normally.
Yeah, I
Um,
was wondering why they didn't decide to just carry Sam like they're
yeah.
carrying Judith.
Although putting Judith under the little gut poncho was pretty funny.
Yeah, what's their
Um,
plan for making her not cry?
yeah, exactly. So they got that all that going on. And and Deanna goes out in a lot of shouty, like, you know, Walking Dead fashion.
She
Again,
chooses to go out in agony versus putting
yeah,
one
that
in
was
her own head.
stupid. I don't know why she did that. It's not like she really helped them get away because they were all surrounding the house. Like, I thought at first she was going to somehow draw them away or something, and I just don't know why she would have done that. But
Well, she's like, "It's my life from start to finish." It's some kind of like statement about not taking the easy way out, but there's the easy way out, and then there's the literal agony getting chewed apart way. And I don't know that anybody would really judge themselves or
mm-hmm.
be judged for taking the easy way out in that scenario.
No, agreed.
That's rough. Right before Carol and Morgan fight themselves into unconsciousness, she says, I would kill you to kill him because I don't want anyone else to die."
Yeah,
Which seems flawed.
a little
Logic.
flawed there. And then, the cavalry, Eugene, Rosita, and Tara, sort of come upon this scene after everything's done, and basically the wolf has betrayed Morgan, like, knocks him out. And he doesn't kill them, so that's something at least. But then takes Denise hostage. And, she does have some medical knowledge, so he probably thinks she can help him a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of. Oh, and Glenn has finally convinced Enid to come back. And they see Maggie kind of hanging out on her little weird wall stand.
Yeah.
But like that, like this is just a frustrating episode, on many counts.
And as a half season finale with no resolution for several months,
Right.
it's a tough place. I mean, this season has already left us hanging several times. They've managed to resolve Glenn's survival under the dumpster, whatever. But now they leave us with this.
Yeah, so the post-credit scene, are you talking about the post-credit scene?
Well, also the Sam starting to freak out even while
yeah.
even while they're like just steps away from the front door of their house, like talking to his mother.
Yep.
We know that's not going to go well. And then post-credit scene introduces yet another problem.
Right. So post-credit scene, we see the return of Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham in their big fuel truck, being basically they're driving up the road and they get blocked off by a bunch of motorcycles and like a gang, and I wish we had seen more of them in this episode, but I guess they were busy dealing with this or driving back, and they it's clear that there's going to be a standoff, and of course this is the first time that Negan's voice or Negan's name is invoked. Yep. And the leader of the gang tells them that everything that they own belongs to Negan.
Yeah.
And that's that's where they leave us for like the sort of hiatus, which is really, really sucky.
I think it would behoove us to start a body count of saviors.
Yeah, it would.
Although no saviors have died yet. I guess only one guy's arm has been cut off.
Arm has been cut off, but we haven't seen anybody out of their group die.
But as soon, starting next episode, we need to start counting, because I think that's a pretty substantial number.
Yep. That's fair point.
But yeah, that's basically the end of the half season of season 6. I think we've both expressed our displeasure with the number of weird cliffhangers and questions
scenes
that are raised that don't have a good payoff.
Right.
What did you say?
Oh, and Enid and Glenn scenes.
Yeah, trying to talk sense into a moody teenager scenes, unnecessary fight scenes.
Yeah.
Between Nicholas and, well, actually that was season 5, But the Nicholas and Glenn fight scene is actually not as annoying as the Carol and Morgan fight scene in this episode, I would say.
That's true. But the Glenn and Enid weird like fight scenes, not like physical fight, but those scenes are probably more annoying than the Glenn and Nicholas scenes. So anyhow. All right. Well, I am ready to move on to the next couple episodes. Are you?
Am I? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Let's finish this season. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Let's finish it out. So next time, well, before that, feel free to email or tweet at us about what you think about these 2 episodes. Although I'd like to hear people's thoughts in general about season 6, and if they're as annoyed by it as I am. And so you can drop us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or send us a tweet, reanimatedpcast, or you can put a comment on our website, reanimatedpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, ciao.
Adios. Thank you.